Bob Bradley, he's coaching the Egyptian national soccer team. He, of course, coached the U.S. soccer team, the national team, from 2006 to 2011. And I saw this story and everything that's going on in Egypt, especially in Cairo, and I started to wonder, man, they're trying to qualify for a World Cup, but that might be secondary here. So Bob Bradley, kind enough to join us. Bob, how did you, find this adventure here that you were going to coach in Egypt?
After I got fired by the U.S., Egypt called, and I was familiar with their team because we had played against them in the Confederations Cup in 2009. And my goalkeeper coach with me in the U.S. and now with me here in Egypt is Egyptian-American, Zach Abdel. So that brought me here for discussions and led to this challenge.
Okay, the challenge is what? Day-to-day coaching this team?
Well, the idea from the start is to get to the World Cup. Egypt has had a great history in soccer. They call it football. But they've not been to the World Cup since 1990. So that was the idea. On a day-to-day basis, it's managing the team given everything that goes on here.
Well, explain that, though, because obviously there's social unrest there, everything that's going on with the government. How does that affect you?
When things get bad, then we're now faced with the second period when they shut down the league. And obviously when that happens, players that play here in Egypt stop getting paid. And we have to find ways to keep them going, keep them motivated, keep them fit when they're not sure what's happening in their lives and their careers.
When you say when it gets bad, what's that mean?
At this time in Egypt, there's a deep divide in terms of what people want for the country. They had a revolution or an uprising in 2011. Some different groups came together at that time and felt that they needed to get rid of the president at that time, Mubarak. But once that happened, these groups didn't really agree about how to move the country forward. And so when things get hot here, it means that different groups protest, and usually there's a tendency that there's underlying factors and people know how to manipulate and whatnot, and those protests in many cases get violent.
You feel safe?
Yes. The key is to pay attention to what's going on and to make sure that when there are going to be mass demonstrations and protests that, you know, you're not anywhere near there. Cairo's a huge city, and what's incredible, Dan, is that when things heat up and around the world they see these images that are terrible and sad, still 95% of Cairo carries on like normal, where people are trying to take care of their families and just survive.
We're talking to Bob Bradley, manager of the Egyptian national soccer team, joining us from Cairo, Dan Patrick Show. But you run into this dilemma where you have players who also are citizens and they have friends who are probably taking up the fight. Do you have that conversation with them about where priorities are of being a citizen and fighting for what you think is right and also being on the soccer team?
In many ways, we do. These guys are very proud of their country, and they love their country. Like any group, they don't all agree about things here. But what we've managed is, in the midst of everything, is to create a starting point that getting to the World Cup would mean an awful lot to this country. And these guys realize it's on us, it's on our shoulders, and it's a tremendous opportunity. And I need to give them credit because in the midst of everything here, every time we have a camp and every time we prepare for a game, they come in motivated and ready, and the response has been really amazing when you consider everything that's going on in their lives.
How big would it be for this country if Egypt qualified for the World Cup?
It would be huge. There's 85 million people, and this is the dream of all Egyptians. Of course, it wouldn't solve all the other problems. It doesn't all of a sudden mean that poverty is swept away or the employment situation changes or fuel shortages change or whatever, but it would make people excited about something, and maybe it would give them a little bit of hope for what lies ahead for the country as a whole.
Do you think it'd bring about a ceasefire, at least temporary?
Well, in the moment, it's calm for a few days. Would it all of a sudden take care of the divide that exists between the people? Probably not. But Egypt has to find its own way forward. You know, when the revolution took place, there was talk of democracy. But, you know, in the United States, we're lucky, and we have our idea of what democracy is. But that doesn't mean that just is easy for a country like Egypt. And so they're going through this process. Different people have different ideas. There's a lot of people that fought for change to get rid of Mubarak, but in the moment are happy that the military's back in power because they feel safer. So it's going to take time. But when you coach, one of the greatest things is you work with young guys, and when you get to know young people and you see their energy and their passion and what they're all about, then that gives you hope, not only for the team but maybe for everything that goes on in Egypt.
When it is bad on those days, what's it sound like? What's it smell like?
I've learned what tear gas smells like. Haven't been right in the midst of it, but there's times that you get a whiff in the air, and some people that I know who have been far closer to these situations will say to me, "Yeah, that's tear gas." You know, for the most part, where we live is a part of Cairo that's a little bit protected. But last week, when things kind of got going, there were marchers in different areas trying to push into Rambis Square, and at that point, the police and security forces were trying to keep the different protest groups from all getting into the same area. And so at that point, you hear gunfire. It's not right next to us, so I don't want it to be exaggerated. But, you know, you can look out the window. We can see downtown from where we live. And during that time, the helicopters are flying, and in some moments you see smoke, and you know there's a lot going on.
How big a challenge is this, Bob? You know, privately, professionally, with what happened with the U.S. team, the motivation, I guess the spectrum of emotions you feel with this challenge.
When I coached the U.S. team, I had a sense of what it takes to build a team and how to challenge guys. That's how I've really handled every team. And the goal when you're a national team coach is to qualify for the World Cup and then obviously get there and do well. And I felt good about everything we did in the U.S. And then this one comes. And at first, when I visited, I realized, okay, this is a different kind of challenge because of everything that's going on. There's things that have happened in the meantime that have made the whole challenge greater. But what's also happened is I've gotten to know this group of players. And you know, one thing doesn't change about coaching. You try to find a way with a group of guys to lead them in the right way and challenge them and create a way of talking and working. And I really feel strongly about these guys. They're an amazing group. We've got some talented older players who have had success in their careers, but absolutely are motivated by this last chance to get to the World Cup. And then we've got some really talented young guys that it would be great if the world could see them playing in a World Cup because these are talented players.
Well, good luck, Bob. Certainly, as a citizen there, and you know, trying to get this team into a World Cup, I know what it would mean, given the fact that I think twice since 1934 they've been in a World Cup. But good luck with the challenge ahead.
Well, Dan, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Bob Bradley, former U.S. national coach, got fired, and now coaching the Egyptian national team. You know, you see the video, you see what goes on sometimes in other countries, and you think that that's what the entire country's about. And I think Bob clarifying that. When you think Cairo, you think, boy, it just everybody's involved in this. How bad is this? It's bad, but in certain areas, it's bad.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.